Hi, everyone. It's Kelly with Women for One, and I am here to welcome Sunny Dawn Johnston to this interview. I am so excited to speak with her. She's one of my greatest teachers. She is a healer, a teacher, a speaker, an author. And the thing I like the most about Sunny is that she walks her talk, and she's truly coming from her heart. She's very real. She's very grounded as a healer, and she's extremely wise, and she's one of my greatest teachers. This is probably the third or fourth interview I've done with her, and I cannot wait to dive in. Thank you. Welcome, Sunny. I'm so honored to have you here today. I can't wait to dive into all the great conversation we're going to have.
I'm so excited to see you again as well, and of course, everyone else. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and the first thing I want to say is if you haven't seen any of our interviews, please go and look at all of our conversations Sunny and I have had. And because of that, I want to ask you right now, what is an aspect of your life that currently is bringing you joy?
Well, I love joy. Joy is one of my favorite things and one of the things that fills me up the most. So I'm always focused on joy. And right now, like in this moment today, it's my grandchildren because they're out of school. They've got the summer off. And so right now, what that does for me is it creates an awareness, and it causes me to kind of shift some of my attention and my energy into creating more space during my day so I can spend more time with them, and they're more present because they have homework and all the rush and things that need to happen. And so right now I'm very present in the awareness of the opportunity I have to spend time with these little people, because they're only little people for a little time. As we know when we're grandparents, we don't realize that when we're parents, but we know that when we're grandparents, and enjoy that time with them. So that today, like in this moment, that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, because it's funny you say that, because I've got 6 kids that are just moving into that space of becoming adults. And I have a lot of friends that are grandparents, and all they do is tell me how incredible it is, how much more fun it is than even being a parent.
Oh, I think
is it really?
Parents is to become grandparents. Just saying.
Why does it bring you joy? What do you think it is?
I think that we have the wisdom to not be so focused on all the little minute details and crazy stuff that we are focused on as parents, and obsessive and controlling and all that. So none of that really matters. So we can just be in the energy and the essence of them and their innocence and their excitement. And we're not worried about, oh, wait, I got to vacuum today, or I didn't have the house cleaned, or their clothes. This is a big thing. Their clothes don't match. Oh my God. Like they went to school, their hair wasn't done. And, those things that I, as a parent, was like freaked out about and paying so much attention to. It's like, whatever, who cares? That doesn't even matter.
Let's just get down on the ground and play. Right.
Exactly. And I think we do actually have more of an awareness of wanting to get down and play, where when I was a parent anyway, I was controlling. I had a real control issue that unfortunately, especially my older son, got the brunt of. And until I could heal through it, I was so worried about how everything looked. Because I didn't know because I couldn't handle how I felt, that I didn't have that presence to just be in joy. And now, like I do, and it's so much different.
It's so cool that you're saying that, because I'm so there with you. I feel that for years I was trying to control my external atmosphere and my external environment, because I felt so out of control inside, but I also wanted it as a distraction. It was a subconscious distraction.
For sure, yes.
That a lot of us do.
Yes.
Right? And that's why I encourage people to dive into their mess, because, if you can handle the mess on the outside, it made me personally start turning inward more to look at what's going on for me on my inside.
Yeah. And I think that the kids, they push buttons inside of us that we have an opportunity to heal or not. And in the needing to control everything, we don't heal anything, and we just keep trying to make it more and more and more perfect and base our parenting on if everything looks right. And I certainly did that, especially with my first child, and started to learn that with my second. So as a grandparent now, it's like, okay, all that bullshit is over. And we're like, okay, now I can really be present and be clear in what my intention is, not only for myself, but with those kids. And then the time is so much more enjoyable, and it's priceless. I mean, I wish I would have known that. And I don't regret, I don't want to take anything back, but I wish I would have known that when I was raising my children, because I think that for sure I would have been a better parent, and I would have been more present to their real needs versus my perceived needs. Wear clothes that match, make sure they're clean, shower at 6, eat dinner at 6 o'clock, shower at 7, be in bed by 8, like all the rules that made you a good parent.
Right. And I so agree with you. But it's just inherent sometimes in first-time parents, right? We're all learning. And I want to talk to you about, first of all, the no regrets. I love, you talk about that. You talk about owning our mistakes, owning our flaws, not having regrets, and learning from the experiences we've had. I want first to talk about that.
Well, I think, one of the greatest opportunities to expand, challenges for me in my life, was stopping the blame game and taking personal responsibility. And in personal responsibility, it was personal responsibility for my life and everything that was in it, everything I'd experienced, everything that I was that I liked and or didn't like. If it was something that sucked, it was my responsibility. If it was something that was great, it was my responsibility. And for me, I spent a lot of time in the blame game. If my dad wouldn't have this, if my boyfriend wasn't like that, if my mom would have been, spoken up more, like all of these different kinds of little things that would always deflect from my own responsibility for myself and my actions and my attraction level and my vibration and my energy and all of those things. So personal responsibility, I think, has been important. And I find that it goes so beautifully with choice.
Yes.
Choice, making choices and us choosing. And a friend of mine said at a conference, Denise Lynn, the other day, she said, there are no victims, just volunteers.
That's right. That's like my favorite. You said that at your last event that I went to.
And that's a button pusher for a lot of people.
Yes.
But what it brings about is it's just personal responsibility. And it's not always saying that other people are influencing and or affecting us, but it's saying I have personal responsibility in the way I choose to accept it and the way I choose to move forward with whatever has happened.
Let's dive into that, because
Sure.
The victims and volunteers piece and the power of choice, I read about it in my book. There are a lot of people that are victims to this world, and you're not talking about that specifically. And I know you differentiated that when you spoke with us. So can you differentiate? Because you're such a teacher of mine. I love hearing you talk about this.
Oh, well, thank you.
Because you have courage to talk about it, because there's a lot of people, it does push their buttons, especially victims.
Yes, it does. And the only reason I can speak to it is because I was one, right? So it's not like I'm saying, listen here, I know all. It's more of the thing that's saying, listen, I've been there, I've done it, didn't work out so well for me, and I found another way. And so we think that a lot of times we do have a tendency to take the things that happen in our lives, and we kind of, and I think a lot of it's taught, and we become victims to those things. And what I realized is I had a lot of victim mentality. That's why I got so much into blame, because it's that person's fault, that person's fault, that person's fault, and if this, then that. And what I realized, though, is if I took personal responsibility, it could absolutely shift the energy from victimhood into this powerful opportunity for learning, this powerful opportunity for expansion. And I realized that if I did that with every single thing that happened in my life, whether it was my choice or not, my power was always in the choice I had in my perception of the experience. If I was going to lay down and let it take me over, or if I was going to stand up and I was going to move forward, and I was going to use it as fuel to fuel me and my forward movement. And what I've done is I've taken all of those shitty things that happened in my life and talked about them and shared them and expressed them and gotten really vulnerable and opened myself up and said, listen, this is where I've been. This is what I've done. And a lot of people would say, man, you've been a victim in a lot of ways. I haven't ever been a victim. What I've been is someone who I believe has attracted particular situations and walked through them, and sometimes very messily, very, very messy, right? But walked through them so that I could share an experience that I could relate with others. And if I could relate with others and I survived it and I thrived through it, then now I have something to teach. And I've become a teacher because I've got, in the years that I've lived, I've traveled in a lot of those. I've signed up for a lot of groups that nobody ever wants to be a part of, right? So, we're like, okay, I don't ever want to be a part of this group over here. And then, oh shit, there I am in that group. And here I am in this group.
Never say never, Sunny. Never say
right.
never.
Don't ever say never, exactly. Because it ends up, whatever you think is never, it's coming your way, right?
Right.
So I think that when we start to realize that things are happening on purpose and in purpose, and that when we take that power and we recognize that, it shifts the entire experience into a teaching place, a learning and teaching place, instead of a victim place where we just get stuck. And a lot of people get stuck there. And I get it. I understand it. I was there once, many times as well. And it's choice.
It is choice, and I love everything you're saying, and of course I want to apply this to an experience so the community can even understand it better. So for example, like you go through something in your life, you're victimized as a child, like, I was sexually abused, right? So I go through that. Then you hit a space where, I'm in a space now where it's like, okay, I've owned it. I know it's made me a stronger person. I'm still processing it, all that. Yet there are still some wounds, and obviously it's an evolutionary thing, and I go into confusion, which I know is good because it's scrambling my brain. I'm really trying to understand it, like the confusion space of how to, it's not about blaming my mother, but just needing some responsibility from someone else as an adult when I was a child for forgiveness. And I know intellectually and from what I teach, it is definitely, I need to move past it and take ownership and not be a victim. Yet I'm sharing this with you because I think a lot of people get to that space of, okay, how do I move on and have a relationship with a person that can't even accept that this happened? And how do I have that relationship? And am I still being a victim and blaming when I'm making a choice and having a boundary?
Sure. So I think sometimes you can't. That'd be my first answer. Sometimes you can't move on and maintain a relationship with that person in being authentic with who you are. Sometimes that person cannot meet you where you are. They can't.
But that's not being a victim, right?
That's not being a victim. That's choosing a boundary. That's choosing a boundary. Okay. So, in my life, I chose that with my dad. So I haven't had a relationship with my father for 12, 13 years now. And I chose that because in the relationship with him, I was continuing to be victimized. I was being taken advantage of. So in the connection, every time he either stole from me, lied from me, cheated, did something. And so what I realized is I was being a victim staying in the relationship.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
But when I created the boundary that said, and this is what I did, and this might be really helpful for some people, and I know this is not the popular answer, and I know people say, well, you're a spiritual teacher. You should not teach that. There's got to be some spiritual answer to make everybody healthy all the time. It's not true. People can only be healthy if they choose to be healthy, and not everybody is. So I think that what I realized for myself is my dad, he's 20 years older than me, and yes, usually our parents should know better than we do, but that's not always the case. And what I recognize is I am allowing this victimization to happen over and over and over again, which means I am enabling it, which means I have responsibility in it, which means if I'm aware of it, and I was the one that was aware, and I have responsibility, and I'm allowing this to continue, then I have to love myself enough and love him enough, not do it from anger, love him enough to release us both from the cycle. And so when I walked away very clear on the fact that I love myself enough to stop this cycle, and that it is my responsibility because I'm the one that recognizes that the cycle is happening. And when I do anything, when I open my arms, when I open my heart, when I open my house, he steps into the cycle of abuse, of stealing, of lying, of cheating, and then there it goes. And so it was my responsibility to end that, even though he was the one that started it, even though he's the parent, even though he's the older one, even though he should know better. I knew better, and it was then my responsibility to do something. And I spent 5 or 10 years going, well, but he's the dad. And then I spent another 5 or 10 years going, but that wouldn't be very nice. And what kind of daughter does this? And so I had all this judgment. And then finally it was just like, wait a minute. You have to love yourself and him enough. And so when I did actually walk away, and I think this is the difference, when I did walk away, I walked away with absolute appreciation and gratitude for what he taught me, what I learned, how I could hold my own energy, because never has that happened since. Now, I'm not saying never ever, but it hasn't happened since. Like, I know what that cycle looks like, and I will not be a victim again. I can feel the energy. I can feel the power. I can feel it, and I know when it's starting. I've met people like that. I can see it. I can feel it. I know it. So that has never happened again.
Right. And so that feeling nature, because I love what you're talking about, and I could talk to you for 3 hours about this, but that feeling nature, I feel like a lot of women, pardon the pun, I feel like a lot of women don't trust their gut. I mean, I've learned it, because every time I hear no, my guides go, no, no. And then, well, maybe. And then it's like, and they're very gentle about it, right? They say no. And if I don't listen, it's either a little rock or a pebble, and then it's a big boulder if I really don't listen, right? And so how do we as women trust that beautiful intuition that we have so we can feel that space?
I think a lot of times the way we trust it is we have experiences that kick ourselves in the butt. And they happen over again. We start putting the puzzles together, and we're smart. So we go, okay, wait a minute. 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 keeps equaling 8. And I can't make it equal anything different. So if this person acts this way, looks this way, says these things, does these things, they're probably this kind of person. And I think it's hard because I know for me, I have a tendency to see everybody's light. It's just who I am. So even if somebody is very, even with my dad, even in the really shitty things that he did, I still saw his light. And so sometimes I think for women, we have more compassion, and we have a tendency to just look for that. And when we're looking for that, sometimes we miss the shadow that oftentimes is bigger than the light. And that's not right or wrong. It doesn't mean that we're right or wrong to engage or not engage. But what it does mean is that if that person isn't invested in seeing their own light and shining it brighter and brighter and brighter, you cannot continue to engage in the shadow aspect of them and not get hurt by it, not be affected by it, not take it on, not absorb it, not have it affect your energy. So intuitively, what we have to do is not use our eyes, not use the senses that we have here. We need to use that sixth sense that says something isn't right.
The kinesthetic feeling, just that gut, because that's the most powerful psychic sense, I think.
Right. Absolutely. And some people have it. So some people, the clairs come in seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing, and scent. And some people's claircognizant, their knowing is much stronger than their gut. Some people's audience is stronger than their gut. But when that feeling, whether it's seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing, or scent, comes through so strong, and you're like, something's not right, it's not right. Period. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to figure it out.
You don't have to justify it. And you don't
have to justify it. You don't have to explain it.
Even to the other person, like if you have to say a clear no, which women have such a hard time saying no. I mean, I know I do. I've gotten much better at it. I've gotten to the point now where when I get that feeling, I say no, and that's the end. You know how they say no is a perfect sentence? I really say no, but I do it from an assertive place, not a you, I win, you lose, a passive aggressive. You know, it's none of that. It's just no, thank you.
Yeah.
And send them off with love. And I'm just curious, like that's easy to do if you feel that.
It's really easy to no, it's really easy to say out your mouth if you can get this and this to line up. And it's hard. I have for sure been a yes person in my life. And I think that what I've learned is that absolutely no is a complete sentence. And that if I'm feeling off, if something's feeling off, my best answer is no. Because I can always renegotiate that no. I can always go back if I get, like, if maybe I'm questioning, well, maybe I'm just scared, versus there's something not right.
Right.
I can always go back and say, you know what, I sat with it, and I think that I was just in some fear, and so I'd really like to renegotiate that agreement. So we could always do that. But when we say yes, it's very difficult to renegotiate that to a no, versus saying no. I mean, think about marriages. Hello. Once you've said yes, it sometimes takes 20 years to renegotiate that no. But if I say no, and then I start to recognize, well, you know what, maybe this was just this, that, or the other, then I can shift it. And that's the thing I think is important, is you can always renegotiate an agreement. And if there are people around you that aren't willing to renegotiate, then you shouldn't be negotiating with them anyway. Meaning, if they're not willing to see that, hey, you got scared, or you were vulnerable, or a life experience happened, then they're not the ones to work with anyway.
Love that. That's so great. And you just have such wisdom. But one of my favorite things about you, Sunny, is the clarity that comes through when you speak, and the clarity and the realness that you walk the talk, right? You've walked it. You don't sit here and profess that you're this spiritual teacher up here. You're walking.
I'm not floating. For sure not floating. I got tennis shoes on right now. I'm walking the same ground. So,
there's a lot of people that have those images in their head about teachers, especially spiritual teachers, right? And so I love that about you, and I love the course that you're doing. I want to talk about your Elevate membership service. I loved when you talked about it at Celebrate Your Life. It was an incredible gift that you gave to the room in many ways. So can you talk a little bit about what it is? And then I want to dive into some story talk.
Sure. Well, Elevate Your Life is my community, and it's really where I spend the majority of my time working with my clients that are there, that are wanting to elevate their lives, that are wanting to raise their vibration, their knowledge, their wisdom in all different areas: their mind, their body, their spirit, their emotions, their finances, their career, their relationships. And so what we have in Elevate Your Life is basically, we've got a huge 40-lesson course that is baby steps to move you from pain to healing in all of these different areas. And then we have this amazing community where we come together. I'm live in there a couple of times a week. So I do some mentoring, I do Q&A, we do master classes on subjects, like we just did one on what the difference between surrender and giving up is. And a lot of people don't even know. They're like, it's the same thing. Nope, it's not. Yeah. So I teach about a lot of things, and then there's a lot of interaction. We have an amazing community of people where people find support, and then we've got fun things, like we have a yoga room, we have a music area, we have the vault, which is where we store all of the live teachings and coaching that I do. And then we also have a members area where people can go and access my past teachings for years. So there's just hundreds and hundreds of hours of teaching.
Well, I know you've been teaching for over 18 years, right? Well, you've been teaching your whole life, but
I have been teaching I've been teaching my whole life.
The whole vault thing, right? I love that idea of the vault of Sunny's teachings. Like, I want to dive in right now because your teachings are so grounded and powerful. And I want to go back to what you said before, because I held it, but then I listened to you, and I want to touch on it. When you said it was my responsibility as the more conscious person to make that choice, that was huge for me. One of my greatest teachers told me that when you have an awareness of something, it's almost your personal responsibility to make that powerful choice in any situation or relationship. So I love that you said that. And
sometimes, Kelly, the thing is our ego pops in and says, well, I shouldn't have to always do it. Like that was my little hissy fit. I shouldn't always have to do it. Why do I always have to be the one, And Spirit's like, excuse me? Like, because you're the one that knows. It's kind of like if you know not to jump in the boiling water or the ice cold lake, and somebody goes to jump in, you're going to say, hey, you're going to die if you jump in there. Like, you're the one that knows. So it
Right.
is your responsibility. And my guides and my angels talk to me a little bit stronger than yours. Mine aren't quite as gentle, but I put them through hell, so I'm sure that's why. So, and mine just say, they just talk to me this way because this is kind of my personality. I need to hear it strong sometimes. And they just say, why not you? Like, I'm like, why me? I shouldn't have to just, why not you? What right do you have to not show up? What right do you have to not do this? This is your service to humanity. So, like, shut up and do it. That's kind of the messages I get. Mine aren't quite as gentle.
Mine are a little more gentle. I think I'd run away for about 10 years and bury my head if I got yelled at.
Oh, no, mine are a little stronger, and so. But like I said, I've made them work hard. So.
Well, okay, so you know how I feel, and I'm actually speaking for all my retreat sisters out there because I'm going to have them all watch this before our next call, about the safe and vulnerable stories that you shared. And you talked at your event, and it moved me more than anything you said around having a safe story. And Women for One is all about sharing our stories and then moving into a more vulnerable story. And the way I relate to it for me is, for my whole life, I've defined myself around being an incest survivor and not having a good relationship with men and always trying to work it. And it's just like, I'm kind of bored with it. Like, it was very painful, and it did shape a lot of belief systems that I had. And I've addressed a lot of belief systems, yet, like, what's my vulnerable story right now? What's going on for me? And when you shared your vulnerable story at Celebrate Your Life with all of us, I was like floored because it was so beautiful to see a teacher standing there with her sneakers on the ground, like the troops, sharing from a space of reality so we could all relate. So I just wanted you to speak to why that's so valuable for all of us to look at that, our vulnerable story.
And I think that I think in that situation, I was the teacher, I was the one on stage, and I think there's so much value in the sisterhood of doing that, because what it does is it automatically allows others to share the parts of them that are hurting that we've all been trained to hide. And I'm just not, my dad was a compulsive liar, and that was one of the issues we had. And he taught me how to lie, and I'm not a liar, and I don't like it. And so it's difficult for me to go up in front of a group of people that I know are looking to me for guidance and pretend that life is perfect when life is perfect in the sense of everything is in perfect divine order, but it isn't pretty. And in this moment, if this moment it isn't pretty, I'm going to talk about that. And so in my experience in the class that you were in, I talked about my son's struggle with suicide. I just found out that he was wanting to take his life, and I mean, it was just a couple of weeks before that, and I had to share that because there are a lot of stories I could share. I've got a lot of life experience and a lot of pain in my life, but so many of those don't move me at all. That's what you're talking about, the safe story. Like, they don't move me. I did it. I lived through it. It's 20 years, 10 years, 5 years down the road. Okay, yes, there was an impact, absolutely, but I'm healed with that one.
Mm-hmm.
But let me show you who I am when I'm in this, and when this is the reality, and let me show you what it feels like to be that person with all the knowledge, the teacher that everybody's looking at. And I'm sitting right next to those of you that have walked this experience with having a child that feels suicidal as well. And the responsibility that you feel as a mother to keep them safe, and yet the knowledge of knowing that they have their own journey and their own soul's experience, and the feeling of out of control that you have, and just being honest about it and saying, you know what, this is where I'm at today. And I'd like to say I'm different. I'd like to say I'm a little further along. I'd like to say that things are hunky-dory. I'd like to say that he's okay. And still today, this is 3 months later, I'd like to say that. And I can't. And that's okay, because we have these communities, and we have these people, and we have the support. And, the moment that you think that you are the only one that's experiencing something, that's when you're in your deepest victimhood. because there are almost 8 billion people on this earth, and we are never the only ones. We are never alone. There is always somebody in our club, always. And, you know, it might not be the club we signed up for. Like, I don't want to sign up for this club. I don't want to be the mother of a child that goes through this. I don't want to be the sister of a sex offender. I don't want to be the daughter of a sociopath. But those are parts of my title. Those are clubs that I am involved in. And so instead of just pretending, hey, I'm a spiritual teacher, I've written 20 books, listen to all the good shit about me, let me just tell you about some of the real shit too. And though that real shit helped me write those 20 books, right? But I'm not going to just give you the light without the shadow part and say, hey, here we go. Here it is.
Oh, Sunny, I love you. I wrote down, I was like, the moment you think you are alone in what you're doing, that is the ultimate victimhood. I wrote that down. I mean, that's huge. Yeah. I love your wisdom.
And I think we do that. You know, I know there have been moments in my life where I'm like, nobody could ever understand. And I've even had those moments as in the last couple of years, as the teacher that I am, saying, well, nobody understands being the teacher and knowing my integrity and having to show up this way. And Spirit said, you don't have to. See, that's what I'm saying. My guides are not gentle. You don't have to. You can show up whatever way you want. Don't use that as your excuse.
Because that's an idealized image, right? That's the way you think you should show up. Just show up as Sunny.
Right. And show up authentically. And it isn't that I have to. It's that I want to. Right. So it isn't that anybody's pushing it on me. I'm looking for it myself. And there are moments when, even though that's what I want, I don't feel the energy to do it because maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm in a bad mood that day. Maybe I'm frustrated. Maybe I feel overwhelmed. Maybe I'm sitting in that place of not knowing. And so we all have those moments. And hopefully those moments are come clearer and quicker and clearer and quicker, which they do even in my life. It's not that I don't have them. The same with fear. It's not that I don't have it, but I'm a pretty fearless person in the sense of, if I have a fear, I'm stepping into it. And as soon as I'm aware of it, I'm in it, because I am not letting fear nor victimhood spend any more time in my life that I'm aware of anyway.
Well, it feels like, when you talk about it, it feels like your guides are very similar to you.
They are. They're tough.
I'm doing it.
Doing it. Yes. And you're going to do it and show up. Quit bitching, Sunny. Get over it.
I love that.
Not in a way of get over it, in a way of like, you don't have a right to feel your feelings.
No.
It's never that. They're always encouraging me to feel my feelings, but it's more of get over it here. Get out of your head and get beyond that.
Right. And
bring it into your heart.
Bring it into your heart. And so can you tell me about your trip that you're taking as well to Peru?
Yeah, I'm taking a group to Peru. So I love to travel. We did Thailand. We took a group of 27 of us last year to Thailand. And we just got back from a Caribbean cruise that we took a group of 30 something. And so now we're taking a group to Peru in 2020. And we're going to be going to all the places that everybody wants to go in Peru, of course, and taking a smaller group, about 25 to 30 as well. And the thing I'm excited about is I've always wanted to go to Peru, but I've never really known why. Meaning I hear all the stories, but like why personally? Mm-hmm. And I don't like to do a lot of research because I like to have the spiritual experience and just go.
You're just like me. I'm the same way. I don't do a lot of research. I just go. I went to Peru a couple years ago and I just went.
Yes.
And I experienced it. And the places that I love the most were not the most famous places.
So I'm very excited about it. We've got about 6 spots, maybe 7 spots left. So it's filling up.
When's the date? What's the date?
It is June 29th of 2020, and it's a 12-day trip.
Wow.
It's all on my website. My Elevate stuff's on the website. The Peru thing's on my website, and it's gonna be really cool. And I think that part of it, as much as it is the environment and where you're going, it's also the people we attract. Like, we just attract amazing people that we travel with that are really like-minded and like-hearted and open-souled and ready to explore and get your adventure boots on and experience life, from a different perspective.
That's like, I want to go. I'm like, June 29th. I don't know. I'm serious. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I can handle the elevation again, I did it okay. I held it.
We actually are incorporating. So I have a guide that's been there 7 times, and we have a shaman that's going to be there with us in different things. And so actually the first 3 days, there's a whole, that elevation sickness, there's some things you can do at the front end to really manage that. And two of the things to do are for 2 days, do nothing. Like hang out, relax, no drinking, no, none of that, but just relax. And so we're going to do our workshops the first couple of days. So some teaching and to just kind of take it easy. And that way the body can have the time to calibrate so that it can get to a place where it's ready for the adventure.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing, Sunny. I love it. And I just love you. And I tell everybody how much I adore you. And in wrapping up, everybody go to her site. First of all, we'll have the link in the interview and also on the homepage feature. What's a practice in your life that you can share with everyone to stay centered, and grounded and attuned to that guidance that we have that's so unique to each of us?
I have a morning routine that I've done for 15 years solid, that I think is and the morning routine, a lot of people hear that word and they go, oh, like how long is that going to take? But it depends. Sometimes it could take 5 minutes, the whole thing. Sometimes it could take 2 hours. Just depends on kind of my energy. But there's 5 things I do, and I'll just run through them real quick. First thing is I meditate every day. And sometimes just for a couple minutes, sometimes for a long time. It just depends on how I feel. Second thing I do is I call in my angels, specifically Archangel Michael, and ask him to help me to maintain my energy, because as an empath and a sensitive person, I have a tendency, my nature is to absorb and take on the energy of people, situations, environments, vibration. So I ask him to help me to maintain my energy. So I invite him in. The third thing that I do is I open my arms every morning and I'm completely open. So my heart's open, and I ask Spirit, I'm open, or I say I am open to receive all that is for my highest and greatest good. And I say it until I feel it.
I want to do that.
Yeah, I love that. It's one of my favorite things. I've done that. Well, when my son was a baby, he used to lay in my bed and we did it together. So he's 22 now. So
wow. That's so cool.
And then I ask Spirit, how may I serve, every morning? And I'm often surprised by the way where Spirit puts me and how I should serve. So don't ask that if you're not ready for the answer. And then I when I get out of bed, I just open myself up to appreciation and gratitude. So thank you for this life I live and this breath I have and the ability to get up. And so I just kind of start my day in that gratitude and appreciation place.
Wow, that's the best answer I've ever heard. That's amazing. We're writing all that down. We're transcribing that, and everybody will, I will definitely be adopting that. So thank you so much.
Very welcome.
Sunny, it's been so great to talk to you. Everybody go to Sunny's site. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's so fast. You're serving.
I appreciate you. So I wanted to say for a minute that I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your curiosity for all of us that are on your show, that you interview, that you've been doing this for so long, and your true interest, not just your like, okay, I gotta get through this interview now, but your interest in giving your community and the people who are watching tools to be able to really change their lives. And it's something that, I do a lot of interviews, and I know that they can be, and I've interviewed, so I've been on both sides of it. And so I know that sometimes it can feel like a job, but I don't get that sense with you ever. Even when it is a job, I don't get that sense with you. It's you really authentically are looking for information for yourself and to share with those people around you. And so I think that those of you that follow Kelly and that have read her book and all of that, I know, number one, why you love her, but I also think, Kelly, for you, sometimes you're always the interviewer and you don't get to hear this, but I think it's really important for you to recognize that you add value to our lives by giving us, number one, a platform and a place to share, but more importantly than that, by taking that knowledge and information in and then sharing it in your own way with your own words, and the ripple effect of that, because that's what we're all doing here, is we're all nothing's new, and no one has created something. Maybe we've created different processes, but there's nothing new. We're just all regurgitating information that's been handed down for years and years and years, and finding ways that it resonates with different people at different times. So thank you for your service to all of us.
It's with our own fingerprint, right? It's with our own fingerprint. So thank you, Sunny.